I've been in business for 14 years, and I'm a septic installer and operation and maintenance specialist. A person doesn't realize how quickly they can become injured and how trivial of a little item that can cause serious damage. So we must be aware on our job all the time with regards to safety.
Where's that page?
Hi, Martin.
Hey, good morning, Val.
Good morning.
Hey. Good morning.
How you doing this morning?
Doing great.
Excellent, excellent.
Looks like we're gonna have another busy day today.
Perfect, that's what I like to hear. Martin,
Yeah.
did you see this article about a guy that died in a septic tank in Renton?
That's the outfit I told you I worked for before starting here. That place was an accident waiting to happen. Old man was more concerned about making money than he was safety. Can't believe something like this didn't happen before.
Well, I'm glad that I'm not the one that had to make the phone call to the family. I can't imagine the pain they're going through.
Right.
You know, it makes the safety program that we're working on super smart.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know what? I vote we grab Chuck and a few of the other guys and have a safety training session.
I like it. You know, I knew there was a reason I hired you.
Of course.
Well, let's go do this.
All right.
Safety is very important to me because I'm a victim of an industrial injury. At one time I was climbing down a ladder, although I had safety gear on. When I released it, the ladder slipped and I was injured very badly.
Hey guys, so you may have heard the story that Val read about in the paper this morning about this guy that got killed in a septic tank over on the east side. And she thought it'd be a good idea if we just went through our confined space entry procedures so that we're kind of up to snuff on what you guys are doing. We're going to start out with the confined space entry permit. That's the beginning of how you evaluate not only the site that you're working in, but also the actual confined space or the tank that you're going to be going down into. So when you look at your form that you have, it goes through and it has some things that it wants you to fill out. Identifies the purpose of the entry, who the crew is, who the supervisors are, how you're going to communicate while you're doing the job, and then goes into looking at all of the individual evaluation that you need to do for personal protective equipment that you need while you are doing the confined space entry itself. So when you look at how you're going to, or what you need to do to protect yourself while you're in the tank, there's a couple of simple approaches to take a look at it. So when you look at what is it on your head that you want to protect, it may be your hearing, maybe your eyes, and you can have a set of goggles. The kind of goggles you use are important. Are you going to be using goggles that will protect you from things splashing back, or do you need to have glasses that will protect you from just impact?
My injury affected me both emotionally and, of course, physically. A person cannot imagine the strain that you have on your life when you cannot provide for your family.
When you're in the tank, a lot of times it's a short height and then there's a lid in there that's made out of concrete. If you stand up too quick or if you move, you can get bunked in the head, and you want to have some kind of protection for the top. You can have a full-on safety helmet, but also in a confined space, an alternative would be just a standard little bump cap. Creation of aerosols when you're in the confined spaces that we work in is an important part of making sure that you have adequate protection for. In particular, because of contaminated tanks, ones that are used, that you're doing tank repairs and some of that kind of work on, you're often creating aerosols, and potentially with the mechanical air supply, you want to have some protection against the biological pathogens that are in raw sewage that are in these tanks after you've cleaned them out as best you can. An N95 or an N100 mask is probably the most important piece of PPE that you can use to protect you against inhaling some of these pathogens that are aerosolized inside this tank. So let's talk a little bit about what kind of hand protection that you want to use and the choices that you have, because there's a couple of options. When you're inside of a tank, the first level of protection that you want to have is a nitrile glove that has a minimum grade for protecting you against pathogens. These are gloves like nurses use in doctors' offices. They're examination grade gloves, and so these are the ones that you have available as your base layer. When you're working in rough areas or moving big pieces of equipment or pumps inside of a tank, having a heavier grade glove over the nitrile glove helps protect you even more. A lot of times it's not uncommon for you to get bumped up against the concrete and sharp edges and stuff inside these tanks, and if you get a cut or a scrape or something on your hand, that becomes an entry vector for some of these biological pathogens that are in these tanks.
Once you're hurt, you don't even know if you're really going to truly recover until one day you finally are able to get up. For me, I couldn't walk for a year almost.
Okay, and then when you're in a tank, another piece of protective equipment that you want to think about having available is a Tyvek suit. When you're working in a clean tank, it's less important and your regular work clothes will suffice. But when you're in that contaminated tank, then doing a tank repair or some other kind of work like that, you really want to have some kind of protective outerwear that goes over your clothing. The reason for that is so that when you get out of the tank and you've got contaminated water and liquid on your pants and clothing and everything, you don't transmit that into the cab of your truck, back to the shop, and even in some cases all the way home to your laundry cycle. It's important for you to do as much as you can to protect yourself and your family against the pathogens that you're exposed to. Okay, so now we've talked about all the personal protective equipment that you'll use for your body. Now we need to check the environment that you're going into. And this is the tool that you use. This is an air quality monitor, and you use it two ways. First, you'll use it to check at 3 different levels in the tank. Because some gases are lighter than air, some are heavier than air, you check at the top, the middle, and the bottom. Andy, all right, you got this? So, you're going to check at these 3 levels, and then once you've got that done and you don't have any alarms, then you're clear to start setting up the tripod, get into the harness, and then the next thing you'll do is you'll attach the air quality monitor up here on your collar within about a 6 to 9 inch area of your mouth, because that's where if you're going to have a problem with gases, it's going to be right here. You want to know about it right away. The next 2 pieces of equipment that we're going to be talking about is the tripod that supports you and while you're going into the tank, and then the harness that you're going to be wearing when you are being lowered, attached to the cable into the confined space. This is a really important part of getting in and out of the tank, particularly if you need to do a non-entry rescue. So before you put these on, every time you use them, inspect this harness, and while it may be dirty, that's okay, but you want to make sure all of the straps aren't frayed and that the equipment is in good shape, physically that way. Another thing you're going to want to do is to inspect the cable so that you make sure that there aren't any kinks or any frays in it. A real easy way to do that is if you run your hand up the cable, if there's a loose end on it, it's going to stab you in the hand. An important part of setting up the tripod is making sure that the feet are wide enough that you've got a good solid base, and also that they're wide enough so that when you're hanging and suspended in the middle of this over the hole of the tank that you're going to go into, that you're able to go into the space without banging up against any of the equipment. It's important for that also because somebody may have to yard you out of the hole, and you don't want to have to make it harder for them than it is. Another important piece of setting this up is that this cable runs up over the top of the tripod in wheels. The main thing you want to look for are these pins that are inserted up on top that are the keepers, that are retention pins to hold the cable in place so it doesn't travel out of the track that it's in. You getting this?
Oh yeah.
All right. Okay. After you've got the tripod set up and the legs extended to the proper distances, the next step is to attach the winch to the leg of the tripod. With these clips here, you enter these pins into these holes at the elevation that you want, and then loop these over, and then this is secure. This then goes on up to the pulley at the top, and the cable then continues on through and is connected to the harness in the middle. To lower it, you just crank the handle, To raise it, you just take it back the other way. Okay, so we've talked about personal protective equipment for your body. We've talked about the equipment that's going to keep you safe, taking you in and out of the tank. We've talked about the air quality monitoring for checking for gases and oxygen levels inside the tank. The next thing we want to do is talk about air supply while you're in there. What this unit does is it's an air blower, and you put it on one of the entry points in the tank. Tanks are configured differently, so you'll have to figure out and decide which is the best place to put air into the tank, but it should be, if it's a compartment that is separated from another compartment in the tank, the compartment that you're working in. So you want the air to be basically blowing into the same space that you're in the confined space, in the tank. Another important piece to this is the volume of air that these are able to produce. If you have a tank that is large, you need to be able to turn the air over a minimum of 5 times. This needs to have a volume throughput of cubic feet per minute that will accomplish that in the tank. It's really important to make sure that you match the blower that you have with the tank size that you have. Okay guys, that's it. Check your job sheets for the equipment that you need. Make sure you've got everything to keep you safe, and have a good day.
Everybody, thank you so much for taking the time to go through this. This is really important stuff.
Hey guys, pay close attention to these things. These things will save your lives.
That's right.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, let's go. I think that went really well. Except for Andy. Did you see him? He spent more time fiddling with his phone than he did listening.
Yeah, I saw that too. I vote we call him in. These guys have got to know how to do this thing right, Val.
My brother-in-law is a pilot, and he says that they practice safety and response all the time. That way, if something goes wrong, people aren't in a panic and they know what to do.
Well, I vote we drop kick anyone who cannot be trusted to save their own life.
Well, that's something I can vote on.
All right.
Andy, to the front office, please. Andy, office. All right, so how are we doing with
The number one consideration in safety for me is peace of mind, both peace of mind for myself and for my employees. With regards to safety, money shouldn't be a consideration, because what you save by your safety meetings saves money in the long run, both in employee safety and employee health.